Hey guys, this is me, Autumn from Little Leaf Art Studio. I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to make these little sea creatures. And then here's a little coral as well. So we're going to use this really fun, soft, air dry clay. And I provide 4 different colors in the kit, and then a little tool. Everybody's going to get not everybody's going to get this tool. There's 3 different options of tools that you may get, but the really cool thing is if you don't get one that I have, you can always use things that you find around the house. If you want a different type of tool, you can use pencils, you can use a butter knife, you can use toothpicks, and there's you can use a marker. There are tons of different ways to use tools that you find around the house to make cool textures and other fun ways to, instead of actually having a tool specifically designed for clay. So anyway, so they come in these little packages, and you're going to want to open up these clay packages. This is air dry clay, so the longer it is in the air, the more it'll dry out. If the clay gets harder to work with, all you'll need to do is just gently dip it in a cup of water. You don't want to leave it in your cup of water. So if it starts to get hard, dip it in a cup of water, and then you knead your clay like this. Knead it like you need bread, not knead it like I need air to breathe. So you just knead it in there until it's all the same consistency. So 4 different clay colors for you to choose from. First, I'll show you how to make the octopus. The octopus is very simple. I used a Sharpie to put his eyes on. I put them on while he was still wet, and you could see it's not the best idea in the world. There's a lot of issues, I guess you could say, with his eyes. So I'm not completely happy with the way his eyes came out, but that was just because I wasn't patient enough to wait for him to dry to put the eyes on. If you want to add eyes, I recommend until the clay is completely dry and harder before you add the eyes. But anyway, it's beside the point. So here we go. Let's get started on how to make the octopus. You don't even need to add eyes if you don't want to. The first thing you'll do is you'll pick your color. So I'll pick pink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break off a section. I don't want to use all the pink because I want to save some of the pink for when I make my fish. So I have a hunk for his body, and then I'm going to break off a hunk for his legs. So I'm going to take the part that I want to use for his body, and I'm going to roll it in my hands until I form a sphere. This clay is super duper soft, and so it does not take much to squish it. And so you might want a little bit of practice learning how much pressure you need to add to the clay. And so don't stress out if the first time you make it, you accidentally squish it and deform the shape. It's fine, just keep trying. And just because it doesn't end up looking like mine exactly does not mean that it's wrong. It just means it doesn't look like mine. So here we go. I made a circle, and then I slightly elongated and squished it so that it's more of an oval than a circle. If you want yours to be just a sphere, then that's up to you. There's more than one way to make this little octopus. So now I'm going to take the other section, and I'm going to make it into a long snake. So I'm just going to roll it on the table. Try to make it as even as I possibly can so that it's not lumpy. Rolling it out to make it into a snake, and then I'm going to cut it in half. Then I'm going to put the two halves like this, and I'm going to cut those in half. Now I have 4 pieces. Octopus have 8 legs. So now I'm going to put all of these in a line. I'm going to make sure that they're not touching because this clay really likes to be attached to itself. So if I put them too close together, I'll have to reform all the shapes. So I want them in a line though, so that I know how to cut them in half. And they're all relatively the same size. So now I have 8 pieces, super simple. 8 pieces, and they're all pretty close to the same size. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna form all of these into spheres, and then I'm going to just apply a little pressure back and forth, and turn them into little Tic Tacs. So I'm going to do that to all of them. So turn them into a sphere, and then back and forth. And I want them all to be about the same size. So I'm going to do that with all of them. Okay, so now I have created all 8 of its legs, and they all are pretty much the same size. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to add them around the bottom part of the octopus. I'm going to do my best to have them evenly spaced. Well, some of them are going to be a little bit crowded. Okay, so now I have them all attached. And you could leave them like this if you want, but I want them reaching up just a little bit. So I'm just going to use my finger to push them up just a little bit. If you want to, you can make it so it's actually like touching his little face, like that. It's up to you. You notice how easily they touch each other, touch themselves. So once you get to assembling the fish, and it has a lot of different colors, you'll want to be careful to make sure that you don't accidentally put a piece that you didn't want touching. You don't want those 2 colors to touch in the wrong spot, because it's very difficult to pull the pieces apart. For instance, so I've got this lime green and this blue. If they touch and I try to take them apart, they don't want to come apart. So these 2 pieces are going to be attached to each other. So just be aware of that aspect of this clay. So there we go. There's our little octopus. You can wait for him to dry and add eyes with a Sharpie if you want. If not, you don't have to. Okay, so the fish is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to put him right here. So I've got my 4 colors. So these are my 4 colors. I don't have a whole lot of pink because I used the pink to make the octopus. Sorry. Okay. So you get to choose what color you want the body. I think I'll do orange this time. And let's look at the shape of his body. His body is kind of an oval, so I'm gonna roll into a circle and then go back and forth and turn it into an oval. And I'm gonna just slightly squish it so that it's a little bit flat. See, he's a little bit flat. Okay, now I'm gonna get his face, and I think I'm gonna make his face blue this time. So what I did was to make his face, I took a piece. Almost all the time, you want to start by rolling it into a sphere, and then you roll it back and forth. Almost all shapes, all three-dimensional shapes start as the sphere when you're making clay. Okay, so now we're going to squish that flat. And we're going to use, and then I'm going to, in the center, I'm going to just pinch just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to flatten that out a little bit more. Then I'm going to add it like a face mask to the front. Like that. And I'm going to just kind of squish it on there like that. Now I'm going to use my tool. And I'm going to push it in right here. And then I'm going to use my tool and I'm going to push it right there. I'm going to smooth that part out right there. I'm going to push it in right here. So that's a little bit of a complicated step, but I believe in you. And remember, if it doesn't turn out like mine, it's completely fine. It's not wrong, it's just different. So don't stress. Okay, so there's his lips. So I've made his lips. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make his fins. And I think I'm gonna pick this nice lime green. So I'm gonna roll it into a circle in the palm of my hand. I'm gonna squish it flat in the palm of my hand, or I can do it at the table. If you squish it too much on the table, it'll stick to the table. It'll be difficult to come off. So I'm doing this very gently. Now I'm gonna squish it flat very gently on the table, one side of it, so it's flat and then curved. Now I'm going to place that on the top, just like that. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom fin, but just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to, same thing, roll it in a sphere, squish it flat, and then squish it flat. Then add that. I'm going to use my tool to place marks. And then I'm going to do the back fin, and I'll use pink. And the way I do that, again, small piece, roll it into a sphere, squish it flat on the table, and then do that, add it there. And then I'm going to add with my tool. Then I'm going to make little spheres for eyes, squish them flat, and add them for eyes. And I can do the same thing to make dots, spots all over him if I want. And then if I want him to stand up, I'm going to like gently squish that bottom fin on the table so that he can stand up. You can add any other little designs that you want to as well. To make the coral, you roll a tube and then you take any kind of thin object that you have lying around the house, or use the tool that is provided, and you make a tube with a little hole in the top, and you make as many of those as you want, and then you can make a little coral decoration to go with your fish and your octopus. And that is the final product. Happy creating!